On the day of my business trip, I discovered my boyfriend's secret. He had an Instagram account that had been active for a long time, filled with confessions of love for another girl. He was willing to love her from over 1,000 kilometers away, yet refused to maintain a long-distance relationship with me, only 100 kilometers apart. He once said he hated traveling, but for her, he had collected 213 long-distance train tickets. In this vast world, I realized I wasn't the only one he loved. Chapter 1. The night I arrived in Z City for my business trip, I discovered my boyfriend's secret. A childhood friend of mine, who had been sent by my boyfriend to pick me up, accidentally let something slip during the welcome dinner. He mentioned that my boyfriend had an Instagram account with quite a number of followers. It was a casual remark at first, but as soon as the words left his mouth, everyone at the table instinctively glanced at me. I froze for a second, but my mind quickly caught on to the username he mentioned. Pretending to be nonchalant, I smoothly changed the topic. Everyone looked visibly relieved, which only made me more suspicious. When I got back to the hotel, I opened Instagram and typed in the username I had just heard. As I entered the full name into the search bar, a realization suddenly struck me. The moon in the sky. His first love's name was Luna. Chapter 2. My fingers paused midair, and I instinctively turned off the screen. As for Martin's first love, all I knew about her was from his casual mention of a high school classmate. After we got together, I never paid much attention to his past. But tonight, everyone's reaction had sparked my curiosity. Taking a deep breath, I finally opened the Instagram page. When I saw the date of the latest post, I froze. It was from the day before my business trip, the same day Martin and I had gone out to eat coconut chicken. The caption read, "Hot pot should really be spicy." But Martin never ate spicy food. At first, I thought I had found the wrong account, but then I looked at the comments, and my heart stopped. Haha. Looks like Luna's got Martin eating spicy now. Martin, don't you remember you can't handle spicy food at all? Did you notice Luna's wearing a dress today? Yeah, even our tomboy Luna is dressing up for love. For all those comments, the account owner said nothing, but neither did he deny them. Unwilling to believe it, I zoomed in on the picture, hoping I was mistaken, but there, at the corner of the frame, was the hem of a skirt, and in that moment, it felt like I had fallen into an icy abyss. It turned out, he didn't hate spicy food after all, he just wasn't willing to eat it for me. Chapter 3. I kept scrolling, one post after another, and with each one, my heart grew colder. After he got together with me, his Instagram updates clearly slowed down, but there were still plenty. By the time I reached 3 a.m., I had only gone through about half of them. Holding my phone, I stared at the bustling streets outside this unfamiliar city, suddenly feeling completely lost. This was where all of their stories had begun. This city was filled with their memories. But what had I done wrong? I thought for a long time. No answer came. It felt like something was stuck in my chest. I wanted to cry, but no tears would come. Finally, around 3:30 in the morning, with trembling hands, I dialed the number I knew by heart. The ringtone went on for a while, but there was no answer. Just as my courage began to fade and I fumbled to hang up, the call connected. Hey, what's wrong? Martin's voice was lazy and drowsy, low and slightly hoarse, echoing clearly through the silent hotel room. All my anger and questions suddenly got stuck in my throat. I stayed silent for a long time, carefully weighing my words, yet nothing came out. Even though I had reached the peak of disappointment, I still subconsciously began to doubt myself. Was he really wrong? It didn't seem like he had done anything, he just couldn't forget. And I almost managed to convince myself of that. Misty, did you miss me? That single line from Martin was the final straw that broke me. The storm inside me suddenly went quiet, and then my tears burst forth uncontrollably. I answered, "Yeah, Martin, I missed you. Will you come see me?" Chapter 4. When it comes to love, I've always been a slow, reserved person. Martin and I have been together for 3 years, yet I still blush whenever we hold hands. Even hearing him say "I miss you" after a long time makes me too shy to respond. Martin knows this about me, so my straightforward reply must have surprised him. He stayed silent for a while before hesitantly comforting me. "Misty, be good. You'll be back in a week. When you return, I'll pick you up and take you to that coconut chicken place you love. I sat there with my arms around my knees, trembling uncontrollably. Martin, they serve coconut chicken everywhere, but right now, I just want to see you. Didn't you say you were on vacation? Didn't you say you'd be bored at home while I was away? Didn't you say you'd come whenever I wanted to see you? Martin, it's only a 2-hour flight from City A to City Z, just 6 hours by train. Can't you come see me, even once? No matter how hard I tried to keep my voice steady, it still trembled, thick with tears, and the only thing that answered me was silence. In that silence, I suddenly understood. Only those who are loved have the right to cry. Chapter 5. When my sobs finally quieted down, Martin's cold voice came through the phone. Misty, are you done throwing your tantrum? You're the one who insisted on going on this business trip. I tried to talk you out of it. You're the one who chose this job. I told you to quit. But you wouldn't listen. Misty, you're an adult. You need to learn to take responsibility for your own choices. Yes, I was the one who had to take responsibility for my choices. Silently, I wiped my tears away, as if wiping away the last trace of attachment I had for Martin. On the other end, Martin didn't seem to notice the shift in my tone. He offered me a way out, waiting quietly for me to respond. After a long pause, perhaps realizing he'd spoken too harshly, he sighed, his voice heavy with fatigue and self-righteous reasoning. Misty, I've already been patient enough about your job and this trip. You shouldn't be taking your frustration out on me, but I won't hold it against you. Just focus on work for now. When you're back, quit your job, stay home. It's not like I can't afford to support you. As I listened to his lecture, my thoughts began to drift farther and farther away. After a moment, I spoke calmly. Martin, let's break up. Before he could respond, I hung up. When the room fell silent again, I sat there, dazed. In a life neither too long nor too short, I'd only been truly brave twice. Once, 3 years ago, when I quit my job in South City and went to a city to be with Martin. And once, just now, when I took the initiative to end our 3-year relationship. Chapter 6. That night, I moved out of the hotel Martin had booked for me. After turning off my phone, I never turned it back on. I figured Martin was probably angry with me right now. Angry that I'd woken him up in the middle of the night. Angry that I'd acted irrationally and made a scene. Angry that I'd dared to be the one to end things. He had every reason to be angry, but not one to be sad. After all, why would he be sad over losing someone he didn't love? But wasn't he the one who confessed first? My mind gradually slipped into a fog, replaying fragments of our years together. We'd been together for 3 years. It wasn't a passionate love story, but it was steady, peaceful. Every weekend, he would patiently accompany me shopping, then take me to watch 1 or 2 of those popular movies from the past few years. I used to tease him for being like an old-fashioned man stuck in the past. He'd just smile quietly and say nothing. Earlier this year, under his arrangement, our parents met and our engagement was set. When we left that day, my mom pulled me aside, speaking earnestly. Misty, Martin's a good man. His parents seem kind and reasonable, too, for a family like ours. Meeting someone like him, stable, well-off, and polite, it's not easy. You should hold on to him. I felt uneasy hearing that, but said nothing, just smiled and nodded. Yes, Martin was a good man. In 3 years together, he had almost never raised his voice at me, and had always treated my parents with respect. Even for this business trip, though he didn't want me to go and was uncharacteristically upset about it, he still secretly booked the best hotel for me and asked his friends here to take care of me. So, was I wrong? If I hadn't searched for that Instagram account, would I have never discovered Luna's existence? If I hadn't come to Z City, would the Martin in my eyes still have been the man who loved me deeply? Unfortunately, there are no ifs in life. Unfortunately, I was never Martin's moon. After staying up all night reading through every post on Martin's Instagram, all those moments I thought proved his love for me turned into a cruel joke. Every word on that account seemed to mock me silently for being a fool. When I finally finished, I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved for a long time. And in that moment, I realized I probably didn't love Martin anymore. Chapter 7. When morning came, I gathered up all my emotions, covered the exhaustion beneath my eyes, picked up my bag, and got ready to leave. That was when Martin's message arrived. Okay, let's forget about your little tantrum. I'm not mad anymore. Mom and Dad called me about setting the wedding banquet. They want your opinion, so let me know what you think. After knowing everything, I finally understood Martin. Between every line of his message, there were reminders. There were exits for me to take, but there was no love. I blocked every way he could reach me, massaged my stiff face, and walked downstairs with a perfectly polite smile. The representative from the partner company was already waiting for me. When he saw me, he smiled broadly and walked up to greet me. He was a tall, easygoing guy named Paul, from the north. We chatted a bit over WeChat before, but we weren't close. As soon as he saw me, he grinned from ear to ear. Miss Misty, welcome to Z City. His enthusiasm made me a little nervous. I shook my head lightly. No need to be so formal, just call me Misty. I wasn't sure if he heard me. He just cheerfully opened the car door for me. On the way, Paul demonstrated what it meant to be a true social hurricane. When he found out I was 2 years younger than him, he scratched his head awkwardly, then decided to call me Missy instead. Most of the time, it was him talking and me listening. When he mentioned me changing hotels in the middle of the night, I hadn't even thought of how to explain it before he came up with his own answer. That place is crazy expensive. I mean, sure, we've got money, but no need to waste it, right? Switching hotels was a good call, save a little cash. For the next hour, my ears never got a break. By the time we arrived, I felt dizzy and half-deaf. Though everything else went smoothly, both parties seemed eager to collaborate, which inevitably added a few extra details to the plan, so my trip was extended by another week. And since that last message, Martin hadn't reached out again. That was his usual way. He'd give me an exit, but he'd never bow his head. Chapter 8. When I learned my business trip was being extended, I let out an unconscious sigh of relief. A week wasn't long, but I still hadn't figured out how to face Martin. More importantly, I hadn't figured out how to tell my parents about the breakup. Just thinking about it made a heavy, invisible pressure settle over me. I didn't want to go back, but I couldn't move forward either. That was when Paul appeared beside me, hands in his pockets. He bumped my shoulder lightly and grinned. Hey, Missy, business trips are boring, right? Come on, Paul's taking you to the movies. The word movie made me instinctively shake my head. But Paul didn't care. He grabbed me by the collar of my jacket and half-dragged me toward the stairs. Come on. Everyone else from the team's already waiting downstairs. Missy, don't be antisocial. In the end, when I saw the group of people waiting below, smiling and waving, I couldn't bring myself to refuse again. Paul said, life's already hard enough, we should watch more comedies. So, against everyone's suggestions, he picked a newly released comedy film. It was a good one. From the very beginning, the theater was filled with laughter. But as I watched the scenes flashing across the screen, all the emotions I'd been suppressing for days suddenly broke loose. In the middle of a comedy theater, I cried my eyes out. I tried hard to wipe away the tears, but they just kept falling. When Paul turned to look at me, my face was already streaked with tears. A flicker of surprise crossed his expression. Then, pretending to be casual, he turned back to the screen, noticing the glances from others. He tossed me a pack of tissues and draped his jacket over my head, trying to sound nonchalant. He teased, Missy, your sense of humor's really something. How do you end up laughing till you cry at such a terrible movie? Chapter 9. After the movie ended, Paul sent the other colleagues away and stayed beside me, waiting until the crowd had completely dispersed. When everyone was gone, he patted me lightly on the head. I'm gonna hit the restroom. Don't forget to bring my jacket out. All right? When his cheerful whistling faded away into the distance, I lifted my tear-streaked face, quietly wiped my eyes, and pulled out my makeup kit to fix my face. When I finally walked out, Paul was waiting for me in the lobby, as if nothing had happened. He took the jacket from my hands and teased me with a grin. Short legs really do slow you down. Then he stepped in front of me, strolling leisurely ahead. I followed behind and whispered, "Thank you." Paul didn't look back, he just waved a hand dismissively. Pulse loaded. You know, treating you to a movie is no big deal. But as we stepped out of the mall, He suddenly froze mid-step. I looked up and locked eyes with Martin, standing right in front of him, like a man claiming his territory. Martin ignored Paul completely, his gaze burning straight into me. "Misty, come here." Seeing his storm-dark expression, I didn't answer. Instead, I forced an awkward smile and turned to Paul. "Paul, you should head back. See you tomorrow." Paul looked between us for a moment, then nodded silently and left. Martin's face hardened even more, his tone sharp and cold. "Who is he?" I didn't reply. I tried to stay calm, but my hands clenched at my sides. In the end, in that silent, charged standoff, I was the first to give in. Chapter 10. Martin. I said quietly, "Watch a movie with me." He froze, then nodded stiffly, his face dark. I turned around and walked back into the mall, bought 2 tickets for the exact same movie I'd just watched. Through the entire film, I didn't say a word, and neither did he. We sat there in silence, both of us expressionless, watching the comedy play out on the screen like 2 strangers. When the end credits finally rolled and the crowd began to leave, Martin's face looked darker than ever. "You watched this movie with him, didn't you?" I turned to him, meeting the anger overflowing in his eyes, and smiled brightly, almost cruelly. "So? Does it disgust you, knowing the same movie was already watched by someone else?" "Martin, what are you even mad about? Haven't you always treated me the same way?" Chapter 11. Martin didn't seem to understand what I meant, or maybe he did, but he only pressed his lips together, saying nothing. Just as I stood up, face cold and ready to leave, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. A chill shot through my body. Instinctively, I shook his hand off. Martin froze, staring at me in disbelief. His lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he only said calmly, "Misty, we're getting married." At that moment, the heaviness in my heart was no less than the night I learned the truth. So he did know it was wrong. He did know how much of an insult this was to me. He knew everything, and yet, he still did it. So it wasn't that he couldn't forget the past. It was that every moment with me was just him reminiscing about her. 3 years of love, only a memorial to another relationship. Anger, humiliation, helplessness, a storm of emotions surged inside me. My eyes stung unbearably, yet no tears would fall. I didn't know whether to hate Martin first, or pity the 3 years of youth and affection I had wasted. I looked at him, and somehow, I laughed. "Martin, what do you even take me for? What does this marriage mean to you? Is it compensation for the way you played me around for 3 years, or a show of power to Luna? Martin, if you love her so much, what right did you have to come and mess with me?" Chapter 12. I hurled my questions at him, one after another, as if venting all the humiliation and resentment inside me. But Martin stood there, calm as still water. My heartbreak didn't seem to touch him at all. He looked at me as though I were a stranger. So it turns out, loving someone can be acted out. Or maybe, he never even bothered pretending. It was just that I picked up the tiny crumbs of affection he casually threw away, and I mistook them for his whole world. All my questions, my unwillingness, suddenly, they felt meaningless. I kept staring at Martin, locked in a silent standoff. But this time, I was not the one to back down. I watched his fists clench and relax again and again, struggling, hesitating, until finally he said, "Misty, if I still wanted to get back with her, or keep things going behind your back, do you think you would have even been in the picture these past 3 years?" I couldn't hold it in anymore. My hand swung before I realized it. The slap echoed. Martin's head tilted to the side. Redness spread quickly across his cheek. His eyes were full of shock. Of course, in his eyes, I was supposed to be gentle, quiet, timid, the kind of girl who wouldn't even dare speak up after missing her elevator floor. Not this woman, yelling and striking him in front of everyone. He must have forgotten where I came from, how I crawled my way through the dirt to survive. Misty was never one of the good ones. Chapter 13. I quietly hid my numb, trembling hand behind my back and gave him a mocking smile. "Martin, I've wanted to slap you for a long time. You did something disgusting, yet you act like you're doing me a favor by giving me a chance to forgive you. For 3 years, you took me to the same movies you watched with her. Ate the same food you once shared with her, even the anniversary gifts were exactly the same. Martin, do you have any idea how disgusted I am? For the first time, a faint ripple appeared in Martin's expression. He took a step forward, trying to take my hand, but I dodged before he could touch me. He didn't get angry. Instead, he looked at me with that same so-called tender expression, pretending to be affectionate. Misty, believe me, it's over between us. She did come to me, wanting to get back together, but I refused. Misty, everyone has a past. Why are you holding on to this right now? All you need to know is that the person I'm marrying now is you, and only you. I looked straight into Martin's eyes and realized he was suddenly so easy to read. At this point, I could see right through his real intentions. Even now, all he wanted to protect was his own pride. I took a few steps back and made my final farewell. Martin, I will never marry you. Never. That tiny bit of affection you condescended to give me, I don't need it anymore. I won't tell anyone about this. But I hope you stop pestering me. Let's end this cleanly. From now on, you can go on loving your moon, while I just want to be myself again. Neither Martin's behavior nor my 3 wasted years were anything to be proud of. I had hoped to end things with dignity, but Martin simply wouldn't let me go. Chapter 14. The moment I got back to the hotel, my parents called. As soon as I answered, their angry voices burst through the phone. Misty, are you done enjoying your easy life? So what if Martin had an ex? They're not even in contact, and he hasn't done anything terrible. Why are you making such a scene? The wedding's already been announced to all our relatives and friends. Do you think you can just back out now? You might not care about saving face, but your mother and I still have our reputations. I'm telling you, Misty, we've already accepted Martin as our son-in-law. If you dare to break up with him, we'll disown you. When I hung up, the world finally fell silent, but the matter didn't end there. Within a single night, everyone within our social circle seemed to know what had happened. My phone was flooded with messages, all urging me to make peace. In everyone's eyes, Martin's nostalgic behavior, which never even crossed the line, didn't count as cheating. They all told me that everyone has a past, that I should be understanding, that I shouldn't be so stubborn. They were all moved by Martin's supposed deep love, yet no one cared what I had gone through. After blocking every single one of them, I felt completely drained. He was the one who had done wrong, yet somehow, I was the one condemned, shackled by moral judgment. In this storm of public criticism, the only victim became the only one to blame. Chapter 15. Before I completely lost my mind, I met someone I never expected to see. It was Martin's childhood friend, the very one who had accidentally let the truth slip, and this time, he asked to meet me in person. To my surprise, he didn't try to defend Martin like everyone else. Instead, he just gave me a faint, apologetic smile. Martin asked me to come explain things to you, but honestly, I don't regret what I did. You deserve to know the truth, it's only fair to you. I didn't know what expression to wear or what emotion to feel. I forced a small, polite smile and thanked him, but he shook his head and said something that shocked me even more. All of us knew about Martin and Luna. From beginning to end, we knew Martin could never let Luna go. In fact, before you showed up, we were betting on when they'd get back together. I froze for a moment, then asked coldly, and after I showed up? He looked taken aback, but answered without hesitation. After you came along, we started betting on when you'd find out the truth. I sneered. You really live up to being Martin's best friend, birds of a feather. Indeed, he smiled faintly, still unashamed. Of course, we're drinking buddies. Scoundrels cut from the same cloth. As I looked at his easy smile, a strange thought suddenly crossed my mind. You like Luna, don't you? His smile stiffened, but he didn't deny it. Yes. So when you accidentally let it slip, you did it on purpose, didn't you? For Luna's sake? I pressed. A bitter smile tugged at his lips, and his voice faltered slightly. Yeah, if you hadn't found out, you and Martin would have been married by now. Luna would have gone insane. His blunt honesty left me speechless. Finally, I could only say calmly, at the core, you're no different from Martin, both of you are trash. His smile faded, but his tone remained steady. Yeah, trash, but the moon never shines for me. Luna loves him, so I had no choice but to create an opportunity for her myself. Looking at the so-called devotion on his face made me feel sick. Your version of love is disgusting. He smiled faintly again. Thanks for the compliment. But compared to all that, aren't you more interested in their full story and why they broke up in the first place? Chapter 16. I thought that by now, Martin had already become a stranger to me, and what I was doing, listening to someone tell a love story, was nothing more than hearing about a stranger's past. But after I listened to the whole story, my heart wasn't as calm as I thought it would be. Not calm, but nothing more than that. Over the next few days, I continued to work as usual, and in my spare time, I blocked everyone who had tried to persuade me to forgive him. Once my parents' numbers were added to my blacklist, Martin seemed to lose all his leverage. So finally, he came to find me himself. In the cafe, the dark circles under his eyes were impossible to miss. His usual calm and confident demeanor was gone. In my eyes, Martin had always seemed like a composed, mature man. No matter what trouble I ran into, he would always analyze things rationally, never once losing control. But now I realized he wasn't mature. He simply didn't care. He held the corner of his coffee cup, his voice heavy. Misty, I just can't forget her. That's all. Does that really make me so unforgivable? So cruel that you won't even give me another chance? Besides that, in these 3 years, have I ever done anything to hurt you? Haven't I treated you well enough? Listening to his mournful tone, I felt nothing, calm, detached, just as he once was with me. Martin, those same few movies you keep rewatching every month, are you watching the films? Or your memories with her? You said you hated long-distance relationships. The distance between Nanjing and a city is barely 100 kilometers, and you called that too far. But do you remember how far it was from G City to Z City? Over 1,000 kilometers, and you still loved her all that time. You said you didn't like traveling, that even an hour's drive to see me was too much trouble. But when she said she missed you, you spent 16 hours on a hard-seat train just to see her, 36 hours round trip, almost once a week. And you were never late. Martin, how did you love me? With those 200 train tickets as proof? When she cried, you said it broke your heart and vowed to spoil her like a child. But when I cried, you called it immature. Martin, what exactly was your love for me? Your kindness? Can you even see it? My words seemed to strike him like blows. His lips trembled, opening and closing, but he couldn't bring himself to say a word in defense. In the end, after all his hesitation, he managed only one line. Misty, no matter what happened between her and me, the one I want to marry has always been you. Chapter 17. His pale, pathetic defense made me laugh out loud, though there wasn't a trace of joy in it. I stared straight into his eyes and finally dug out the ugliest truth buried in his heart. Martin, is it really that hard to admit you don't love me? You never wanted to marry me. Anyone who doesn't drink, doesn't go clubbing, and isn't surrounded by admirers, anyone unlike Luna, could have been your so-called perfect bride. You chose me simply because I don't smile too much. Don't act out. Don't throw tantrums, because I'm the least like her. Martin, I once thought you loved me, even if only a little, that you just loved her more. But now I see, I wasn't even her replacement. You're allowed to miss her, to remember her. But why drag me into your memories? Why turn me into a cardboard cutout of your past? A prop in your background? I said, as calmly as I could, the one truth that cut the deepest. Martin, you've lied to me so cruelly. Martin stood there, stunned. After a long silence, he finally murmured, I'm sorry. I let out a bitter laugh. 3 years, and this is the man I loved. When I moved out of Martin's place, he still tried to stop me. Misty, can you please stay? Even now, I still think you're the perfect person to marry. I looked at him and smiled faintly. I am, but you don't deserve me. In fact, you don't deserve anyone. You pretend to love Luna so deeply, as if the whole world should applaud your devotion. But the truth? You broke up with her just because she went clubbing and drank, because that didn't fit your idea of how love should look. You felt betrayed, thought your love was disrespected, so you left her. No matter how many times she begged you to stay. And yet, you kept those old train tickets. accidentally letting her see them, so she'd think you still loved her, that there was still hope. You parade around, acting like you're hopelessly in love, but in reality, you don't love anyone. The only person you've ever truly loved, Martin, is yourself. People like you don't deserve love. And you certainly don't deserve marriage. You're fit only to die alone. Chapter 18. After hearing every accusation I hurled at him, a strange look crossed Martin's face. He mumbled for a long time, then finally whispered, weakly, Misty, even if you don't love me anymore, you shouldn't say things like that. Martin. I cut him off coldly. Spare me that fake sincerity and your disgusting act of deep affection. I've had enough. And with that, I said my final goodbye. Don't ever let me see you again, scum. Chapter 19. My breakup with Martin became almost public gossip. Everyone knew about it. Until he found a new social circle. It was unlikely that any decent woman who knew him would ever date him again. Of course, there were still a few girls touched by his so-called deep devotion who tried to approach him, but Martin rejected them all. The person he now seemed to pine for was no longer Luna, it was me, and all of it just made me sick. I turned down every attempt he made to reconcile and refused his offer to just stay friends. I didn't leave a city, but I did change jobs. The new work kept me busy, constant business trips, late nights, but it paid well. My parents called a few times to talk some sense into me, insisting that losing someone like Martin was my biggest mistake. But when I sent them my salary statement, a sum large enough to silence them, they suddenly had nothing left to say. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it still trembled as I asked, Dad, Mom, your daughter isn't that much of a disappointment, right? There was a long pause before my father finally replied. Just because your salary's high doesn't mean you should get cocky. We can't help you much. So be careful with your spending. Conversations like this, I'd long since grown used to them, but my heart still gave a small, painful twitch. Yeah, getting used to it was the only way. I'd grown used to everything except Paul, who suddenly appeared in my life, because he was too loud. I'll never forget the first thing he said when he showed up in a city, grinning from ear to ear. Missy, Paul's got a romance he'd like to discuss with you. Their story. Martin and Luna met in high school. They were desk mates for 3 years, and for those 3 years, Luna bullied him relentlessly. Martin was brilliant at math, while Luna's grades in the subject were a complete disaster. After Martin scored his nth perfect 130, Luna suddenly asked him to tutor her. As payment, she brought snacks for him every day. But tutoring was just an excuse. Luna never paid attention. She would stare at Martin's face the entire time he was explaining problems. And when he asked if she understood, she would nod earnestly, only to get the same questions wrong again when the test came. Every time that happened, she would pinch him, hit him, and whine endlessly. Why did I get it wrong again? You must have done it on purpose. You didn't want me to learn. Did you? This happened so often that at first, Martin was annoyed, but after a while, he somehow got used to it. Their relationship became official one weekend. Luna said she wanted to treat Martin to dinner, but made him bring his math papers along. During the so-called study session, she was as inattentive as ever, but as he spoke, she suddenly leaned in and kissed the corner of his mouth. Martin froze, stunned by his stolen first kiss. Before he could react, Luna's face turned red and she immediately played innocent. Martin, now you have to take responsibility for me. And just like that, they were together. After the college entrance exams, Martin went to G-City, while Luna stayed behind. They video called every day, chatting endlessly, always with something to say. In Martin's eyes, Luna was a delicate, childish girl, one who always seemed like she'd never grow up. But during that time apart, she seemed to change, to become stronger. Still, a child is a child. A child can act strong but still feel hurt. So one night, while laughing during their call, Luna suddenly began to cry. And when she said she missed him, Martin panicked. To save money, Martin would buy a hard seat ticket every Friday afternoon and endure 16 long hours just to see Luna for a single day in Z-City. From then on, he started making the trip regularly, at least twice a month, sometimes as many as 4 times. He did this for 3 whole years. Everyone around Luna, her friends, her classmates, knew about Martin. The boy who kept coming back just to see her. Even Martin's own classmates teased him, calling him a fool, but he didn't care. He took tutoring jobs in his spare time, even did other people's homework for pay, just to save up enough for train fare. Martin did love Luna, deeply, genuinely, but when they broke up, he didn't hesitate for even a second. The reason for the breakup was simple: he hated that Luna drank. To be more precise, he hated that she went drinking at bars, karaoke clubs, and nightclubs. Every time she went, he'd get angry. After several rounds of the same fight, Martin began to feel betrayed. He told himself he had never wronged Luna. He had tried his best to give her everything she wanted, and avoided everything she disliked. But maybe because she thought he loved her too much to ever leave, Luna ignored every chance he gave her, until one day, he left her, coldly. No matter how she begged or cried, he never turned back. It was only then that Luna realized how badly she had messed up. She changed, gave up drinking, stopped going out, but Martin never looked back again. Somehow, the distance, the regret, even her suffering, all seemed to give him a sense of victory. He thought, people only learn to cherish something once they've lost it completely. And so, despite all his lingering affection and regret, he refused to return. A year after their breakup, Martin ran into Luna again. It happened at the same little restaurant they used to love. She was carrying the bag he had once knitted for her, and inside were all the train tickets from his trips to see her. She wanted to use that thick stack of tickets to prove her love, to move him again, but she didn't realize that only made him feel even more certain that leaving her was the right decision. In his mind, his departure had finally made her understand his worth, and that alone satisfied him. From that day on, almost as if to spite her, Martin declared that he now only liked gentle, well-behaved girls. He said his future partner had to be completely different from the Luna of the past, and that she could never be the Luna of the present, either. He even said, "If any girl ever makes me travel 1,000 kilometers again just to see her, I'll curse her out on the spot." And he did keep his word. But the one who ended up sickened by all of it was me.